Hello, and welcome to our Jargon podcast. I'm Bill Aimone, and I'm here with
Peter Purcell. This has been 2 years since we've been doing the podcast.
Yeah, we're kicking it back off, and what we're going to do today is when we do this Jargon podcast, one of the things we do is break through all the jargon that's out there in the business world. And today, Peter's going to help clear up some jargon that actually I didn't know much about until recently.
Well, that sounds good, Bill. I'm always glad to do that. But do you mind if I give a shout out to our one listener?
Absolutely. Say hi to your mom.
Hey, Mom.
Anyway, Peter Purcell is my partner in crime here at Trinigy, co-managing director with me, and we're going to talk about. What are we going to talk about today, Peter? I think there was something I heard you say, ITSM or ITAM. Help me out here.
Yeah, so you were talking about wanting to know more about ITSM, which is IT Service Management, ITOM, which is IT Operations Management, and really where the value is ITAM, which is IT Asset Management.
Okay, we're going to kill three jargony sounding words in one podcast. Is that right?
That's my understanding. I mean, it's up to you.
Well,
you're the interviewer.
I think we should do that. So
okay.
Let's just kind of back up a little bit. And you have these four acronyms. You got ITSM, ITAM, and ITOM, and
I'm really glad
that LMNOP.
Yeah, LMNOP. Right. There's your four. Right.
Okay. So tell me, kind of in a nutshell, what is IT?
Whatever. Yeah. So if you take a look at a large company, they have typically a large IT department, right? So you need to be able to interact between the business and IT, make sure that IT gives you good, predictable, reliable, secure, and cost-effective service, right?
Okay, so basically I want my IT department. I don't want my computers to be down. I want it to be working, and if I need help, I get help when I need it.
Right, and you want it to be secure. I mean,
I don't want to get hacked by the
Russians.
Yes.
Well, we can say that.
Or
the
guys,
Chinese,
or the people in the basement,
or the people in the basement, or the North Koreans, right?
Yeah.
Just all the usual suspects. So, when you have interactions between business and IT, given the complexity of your IT assets, having some structure and some policies and procedures and tools around those interactions, very useful.
Okay, so this almost sounds like ERP for IT.
Exactly. Department. That's exactly where I'm going. It's almost like you and I talked before this podcast or something.
Well, we talked briefly, but I'm really curious now.
Okay.
So
if you take a look at, on the business side, you have an ERP that helps you manage basically information, everything from your sales process or your order to cash process,
your
accounting, finance, reporting, the whole shebang. Well, in a large IT department, you have something very similar, and there's a series of applications out there that people use. ServiceNow being one of the biggest ones. There's others as well. But what happens is there's three different types of interactions that you usually have within IT.
Okay, so we're talking about IT. We're talking about IT serving the business and having the tools they need. Okay, so let's dig into this a little bit. You said
so we will start with IT service management, if you don't mind.
Okay.
It's a little backwards, but I'll in my part.
Well, service should be first. That's not backwards.
That's right.
That's good.
Okay, very good. So IT service management is really the entire suite of applications where when business has a problem, business has a request, needs to notify IT. IT has to assess that problem. Go respond back to business. Hey, I acknowledge the problem. I've assessed the problem. I'm going to fix the problem, and then let business know the problem's been fixed.
Okay, so you're talking about problems. So is this why it takes so long for the IT people to help me out?
I'm going to plead the Fifth Amendment on that one.
Okay, all right.
That's
because it says it, just fix it. I don't know.
Yeah,
but
I think in all
right?
fairness, though, to IT department, I think the majority of people have their hearts in the right place, and they try to do things as fast as possible. Okay. The issue is that IT, in large organizations, IT can be a pretty complicated environment, and being able to fix something in a spaghetti bowl of interactive applications and the like.
Well, in this digital world, you got so many. You
you
have hundreds of systems.
You have hundreds of systems, and you can fix one system and break something down the line without knowing it, which I'm going to get to in a minute in ITAM.
Okay, but one at a time here. Okay.
I know. But back to service management. Really, what that is, in the simplest terms, it's kind of your ticketing system.
Okay, but let's break it down here, because let's say I am I'm in the finance department. I need IT to build a new report for me. Would that be service management?
Yeah, that usually goes through service management.
Okay, so it's not just problems; it's things that the business needs help with.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just, unfortunately, most of the time business thinks of IT as a problem, for a variety of reasons.
Or a solution to every problem.
Hopefully, yeah. So we'll see. But bottom line is, I have a ticket, right? I need a report, or my PC's not working. I generate a ticket. Okay, that's the start of your IT service management system.
Okay, so it's any type of thing, something a customer needs. So the customer
needs
someone in finance, operations, sales, and a sales guy needs to get access to the CRM system, or he has a problem. He's going to call IT to help him.
Right. And typically that's the start, and that's where IT service management comes in. It's ticketing. I'm not going to go into great detail because I want to bore half of our listeners, but basically it's ticketing. It's making sure that the need is properly assessed. It's assigned to the right individual or in group to be addressed. It's addressed in a timely manner. And so all that routing and all of that interaction is within the IT service management module.
So do these applications keep track of like all this activity?
Absolutely.
And what do they do with it? I mean, surely they got to do something.
Yeah,
with this.
so just with an ERP, if I were to ask you what's the number one purpose of an ERP, what would your answer be?
Probably getting good financial reports to my stakeholders.
Okay, so I'm going to say it a little differently.
Okay.
It's information. You're tracking information
all right,
about
well,
your
you're tricking
business.
me. That was a trick question.
That was a trick question. But seriously, your number one reason
financial reporting is information.
Is information, exactly. You weren't wrong. It was just maybe a little narrower than I was thinking. So it's rare that now the role is reversed. But bottom line is it's information. It's information to run your business. So IT service management starts with capturing all of this information. And what do you do with information? You report on it. And what's important when you start reporting on information about IT activity, any activity, and we'll talk about it with the other two acronyms shortly, is being able to know what's going on, identify trends so that you can get ahead of issues before they come.
Okay.
So if I start... Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I'm thinking ahead here. Maybe I'm going too far.
No, go for it then.
But so let's say for the past 3 months, people have been having the same problem over and over again with their laptop. Like their microphone's not working
exactly
on their laptop.
So then IT service management, if you've been logging the tickets correctly and the resolutions correctly, makes it faster to identify in a reactive mode. If somebody does call in and say, my microphone's busted, you go into the system, you see, everybody's been getting a new driver update. Now, that's reactive. A good IT department will use that information, and it shouldn't take them 3 months, by the way. It'd probably take 4 events. That's the magic number. You don't want to go beyond 4 events to identify a trend, and so that you can say, we're having, for this fleet of laptops, we're having microphone problems, and the solution is a driver update. That driver update gets pushed out so that most people don't even know that they had the problem. You get ahead of the curve. And that actually leads into other acronyms, because that's
don't go there yet.
That's fine. That's where operations and asset management come into play.
Okay, but I'm also wondering, can you also use that information to over a long, as you mentioned, 4 events over a longer period of time, and look at things like, I've got a series of problems that are escalating around my order management system, where it's having failures, or reports aren't working, where then you can maybe drive a business case to upgrade your order management system. I'm curious about that.
And that's where then you start getting into the gray area between IT service management and IT operations management. When you get into IT operations management, that's where you start doing monitoring of your applications in the background, independent of human interaction.
But back up, because you're already going into the other acronym.
No. Hang on. I'm actually getting to a good point.
Okay,
I promise. So this is just like an ERP, like MRP, HR, finance, procurement are all interrelated and all integrated. It's the same across ITSM, ITOM, and ITAM. Okay. So, sorry guys, too many acronyms. But the bottom line is that service management starts that process. Okay. When you start talking about managing those trends or tracking those trends, if people are not putting in tickets, then you have other tools which are in operations management to be watching this stuff in the background to make sure, these reports are failing, or I have an issue where I have a server that's approaching maximum CPU usage, so that you can use IT operations management functionality to go address that in advance. So they work together. But the answer to your question, short answer to your question is yes. You can watch these trends and address these things.
I was almost thinking about business issues. So, for example, the salespeople are always having a hard time generating invoices because it doesn't have the system doesn't have the functionality they need, and they call up IT, and they're always calling them up saying, "Hey, why can't we do this? This isn't working."
Well, so if IT is logging, if the tickets are being logged properly, the short answer to your question is yes.
Okay, got it. So there's value in this, right? I mean, I'm almost here that you can, because one of the things you hear about is, and I'm sure IT deals with this all the time, where it's always we have this problem over and over again, and it's bigger than it is. You can actually go in and look at the data to see if something's a big problem, because some squeaky wheel might complain about their laptop, not opening and closing right, and then they think all the laptops are broken. When you can go and look at the data and say, no, it's only this one person.
Correct. And also it's very notable because I know the geeks who are listening, and I'm a fellow geek, who are listening are saying...
There are probably no geeks listening, just your mom.
I know, it's just my mom. Hey, Mom. Sorry, I didn't mean to call you a geek. But the bottom line is that there's going to be some argument about what I'm saying within service management. But in general, service management is where you're interacting with the business, your customers. So there has to be active interaction for service management to really be able to do well.
Okay, but aren't there cases where, let's say, you have field IT people who need help with stuff from corporate IT? Would that be?
Yeah, that's part of service management.
Okay.
Service management is truly the interaction between your customer, your business customer, and IT is going to be done primarily through service management.
Okay, so essentially in a nutshell, it's taking I'll call it requests that business has.
That's service management, yes.
And being able to, and you're also looking at response time.
Absolutely.
All that stuff. Now, I'll tell you one thing that just annoys me is I get a ticket, I get a ticket when I'm speeding, but also when, I get this email saying your ticket's been closed automatically. Does service management do that too? Or how do you stop that? Because sometimes I'm not ready for it to be closed. How do you address that issue?
Well, look, as with all systems, right, nothing is perfect. As with all processes, nothing's perfect. Yes, there are cases where that happens, and it shouldn't. But if all is going well, that shouldn't happen to you.
Okay, so that's service management.
Now I'll go to operations management. And this will be a little shorter discussion. So
but go slow, okay?
I will. No. It's okay. So everything we just talked about in service management is done. Human created a ticket to ask for help, right? I needed help to fix something. I needed help to get a new report. I need help. I need IT's help. Okay. Right?
Well,
so there was in service management, that's where the intake is.
Now, before we leave service management, I do have a question for you, okay? So what if it's help like a big thing, like I want a new system? Is that service management too, or is that different?
So oftentimes...
Or am I going off the...
Nah, you're going a little off the rails, but that's okay. Look, here's the deal. Now, you're hitting a whole nother topic that we should probably talk about as a separate podcast.
Okay.
In terms of IT intake process for things like that. Service management is truly really for very small net new requests, or really primarily, hey, something's not working and I need your help.
Okay.
Got it. What you're talking about is instigating a project, which if you go to PMI compliant PMBOK, see, I'm using all sorts of really nice. You asked for it. That's a whole intake process for totally different governance and process.
But I guess you could use the data from service management
to
help
justify
support a business
yes.
case for an initiative.
Yes, if you've been using service management correctly, the answer to your question is yes.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so now we're going to talk about IT operations management.
So IT operations management in general is the automated version of what I've just talked about. So in service management, a human being instigated a trouble ticket. I have a trouble ticket. I have a problem. I have a request. IT operations management really sits in the background. There's a whole series of tools out there like Broadcom and Archer and just a variety of products out there that do all sorts of monitoring in the system. Like Broadcom monitors hardware performance. Archer monitors whether you're being patched or not. And what it does is mostly in IT operations management, it works in the background, and when it identifies an anomaly, it creates a ticket so that IT has to investigate. For example, you talked about reports not working. A report job is sent. Like you're supposed to have reports generated, out of your data warehouse or whatever on a regular basis. Didn't happen. Monitoring will notify IT, hey, that didn't happen, or a server is down, or for some reason you can no longer reach a server. Your web front end is down. If you have the proper monitoring, the proper IT operations management capability in the background, that'll notify IT, and it should
So
be.
it's sort of like my home alarm system,
Yes.
essentially.
Very good. Good analogy.
Yeah, or I'll throw it this way. It almost sounds like to me, and I'm stepping over in the operations technology side, is kind of your PLCs and your SCADA and production monitoring, where there's an anomaly, it sets off an alert, and you do something. So basically,
yes.
Or if I look at the world of devices at my home, like whatever it might be, my door alarm or a camera, my Ring camera that sets an alert that says somebody's at your front door. So I assume that within IT operations management, the IT department can decide what's worthy of setting off an alert so they can respond. Is that?
Yeah, that is correct. And it's interesting that you point out that IT sets these types of priorities and the like. Done right, you actually need to sit down with the business to determine what's important. For example, if I have, if I have a server that's running, and if it goes down, it doesn't affect customer interaction. It really doesn't affect people's day-to-day jobs. It's just really more of an annoyance. That's going to be a low priority item. But if my website goes down, then it's all hands on deck, and I need to get it back up and running. Then, so that's a use, right? That's a use component of what's critical and what's not.
Okay.
Then there's also within IT operations management, there's a whole long line of, security. What am I going to do? How am I monitoring security in the background?
Okay, so this is where the cyber threat protection comes into play. So if I'm if a hacker from somebody's teenage kid in the basement's trying to break into the bank or whatever, and you're running IT operate, you might have something set where somebody's trying to hack in or something.
Somebody's trying to hack in, or even down to, your laptops have a particular load set on them, just software that you normally load. All of a sudden this laptop has a piece of software you don't recognize. Boom, it'll trigger an alarm, trigger an alert, trigger a ticket, and
so
let
like
you know.
Big Brother.
Big Brother. But done right, it's good Big Brother.
But it's the company's assets. You got to protect them. And I know you've talked about this on a previous podcast around cybersecurity. Where do all the cybersecurity threats happen from the people from the people who are using the computer? So if they download something malicious, you need an alert to say, hey, this guy downloaded something that wasn't supposed to be there.
Exactly. So that in general, that falls loosely within IT operations.
So if you're
management.
what type of companies need this? I mean, I start thinking I'm almost thinking everybody needs this, right? To a certain degree, but it sounds expensive too. So help me out here.
Well, so every company needs it. I mean, our company needs it
to a certain degree, right?
To a certain degree, and it's all fit for purpose, right? If you have, like, we have a fleet of 24 laptops we can manage it without sophisticated software, and we take advantage of Windows
and we've trained the heck out of our people.
And we've trained our people.
Make sure they don't click on stuff.
If you have 10,000 assets, or better yet, 100,000 assets out there,
you're talking about laptops or
laptops,
people with, handhelds,
routers, modems, handhelds, SCADA devices, scanners. All of a sudden now, that's where you start needing this as software. You have multiple points of entry. So the bigger and the more complicated your environment is, the more necessary it is to buy a software like this. I mean, think about it. The best analogy I can think of: startup work well. Startup business will work well on QuickBooks. Look at that startup business, 10 years later, and they have 50 locations. They're international. They're no geographic boundaries, and they have thousands or hundreds of thousands of customers and employees, and that you can't run on QuickBooks anymore. So
then you go to an Oracle or SAP. Okay.
Yeah. So that's where these.
So really, IT operations management is covering monitoring to make sure things stay, and proactively monitoring. So if something happens, they can go address it immediately. But it's also the security and protection of the company's information technology.
Right. And without going into great detail and totally geeking out, there's a lot more to it than that.
Oh, well,
but
if there's
in general,
more, tell us.
But it's if I do, it'd just bore you to death. But what's important to business about operations management is exactly what you just said.
Okay, all right. That's
what's important to business.
But you know what, though? If I'm on the board of a large publicly traded company, and I'm asking my chief technology officer, saying, okay, how are you protecting it? I might say, hey, tell us about your IT operations management and
strategy and approach.
Say, are you hitting on these two things? That's important. That's important to me as a board member. Okay. Got it. This is great. So we talked about service management, operations management. Yeah. Now this last one you called
asset management.
ITAM, IT asset management.
Yeah, ITAM.
Okay.
So IT asset management is I almost feel like it's just that. No different than managing your assets, tracking and managing your assets. If you have vehicles, if you have rigs, if you have just production equipment, knowing what you have, where it is, what condition it's in, and kind of what maintenance level is it at, how well maintained is it, all of that.
But you're talking about technology here.
But I'm talking technology. Technology is an asset no different than a truck.
So
computer is a truck. Think of it that way.
A server, a laptop, a
router,
a PLC,
a switch, you name it.
I'm learning the lingo.
There you go. Yeah, I'm actually surprised you know the word switch, except for you were thinking light switch, I'm sure. But
that hurts. Ouch. All right.
But bottom line is that's what asset management is. The other thing that falls with that's your hard assets, right? Your network, your hardware. Then there's also a subcategory software asset management, which is your licenses or your entitlements. So the licenses.
When you say entitlements, you're not talking about young people.
No.
Okay.
Oh man. Okay. So no, entitlements in general. The reason why they call it entitlements, not just licenses, is in today's world with software as a service, you actually don't really get licenses. You get access, right? You get user accounts.
Okay, so basically what you're saying, I'm entitled to use this software. I'm not getting a license. So
it's not that you expect something for nothing. You're actually to your previous joke.
Not entitled. I'm entitled to this software.
Right.
Okay.
But the bottom line is, so you need to manage your assets, and what's really important there is, so let's talk about hard assets first, and we'll go to entitlements here. But with hard assets, you really need to make sure that you know what you own, how they're hooked together, what sort of applications are on them, where are they? Because when you go through and you respond to a service ticket from service management, or you're responding to an incident out of operations management, if I'm going to go in and work on this particular item, I have to understand what all the interactions are so I can minimize the impact of whatever my activity is upstream and downstream. So if I patch a piece of software, I'm not going to kill my website. Or if I patch this database, I'm not going to kill my HR system or my production system.
But also, what I'm hearing you say, asset management, I can also look, if I have service management and operations management, I can see the history of, for that asset, when has it been down, when have we had problems with it.
Bravo.
Okay.
Bravo.
Okay.
Exactly. And then I can make a business case or understand as I approach end of life, am I approaching end of life? Is it time for me to make this investment? Because the hardest thing for IT often to do is to go to business and say, you know what, we need new laptops. We need a new server. Business is like, well, what's wrong? There's nothing wrong with my laptops.
Yeah.
Well, I need to show you a history of we're having problems and it's affecting the business because, it's down X percent of the time. Or, we can no longer patch it because it's end of life. Nobody's supporting it anymore, whether it's software or even hardware.
But you can look at that asset and look at the history, and let's say you're running a critical operation, a manufacturing operation, you need to be up 24/7, and that asset's running the plant. And by the way, we've had this much downtime over the past year,
exactly,
and it's cost this much in product revenue.
It's time to replace it.
It's time to replace it,
and there's a business case for it.
Perfect. This is great.
Now, okay. So that's the hardware asset management side. Now, where people get savings, if you have a good asset management system, this is very important because this is often overlooked. Tons of companies, if you have hundreds of thousands of assets, okay, what often happens is when an asset is end of life and I'm no longer using it, it may still be out there and it may still be running. And I may still end up, because it's running, I am still paying license fee for it when I'm not using it. If you use your asset management software correctly, you can identify, oh, that's an end-of-life asset. It shouldn't be out there. I need to shut it down, and I need to cut off my entitlement to it.
Okay.
And that actually happens more than you realize in very, very large organizations. Think of the military. There's actually still Jeeps out there in some, in some military bases. I know it's hard to believe, but why? They haven't used a Jeep since the Vietnam War.
Interesting. So basically, this is your, I'll call it, way to kind of clean house and keep the house clean on an ongoing basis, so you're not accumulating stuff you're not using, or you got software sitting on it that you're paying for that you're not using. You're not using. So basically, this is a money savings opportunity for large organizations who have just thousands and thousands of
done right. Yes,
especially ones that have been around a long time. They can.
Then the extension to asset management is software asset management. This is where you can actually save a lot of money. If you have, and especially today's world where you have software as a service, think about your Office 365, right? Okay. Hopefully, we've talked about this before. All companies should be on Office 365 anymore.
Unless they just don't like Microsoft and they want to do Google stuff.
Right, we actually have a client that is the largest Google user on the planet.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that. So
nothing wrong with it, but I'm picking on software.
I think what you're getting at is you shouldn't be on Exchange Server.
Right, you shouldn't be on Exchange Server. Okay. But bottom line, what happens is somebody leaves the company, HR does a good job of exiting them and the like, and IT will do a great job of shutting down their account, right? And all PeopleSoft, just something as simple as PeopleSoft HR will send a request, a ticket in, cut this person off. They'll do that. But that doesn't automatically go down and draw down one license off of your Office 365. So you keep paying for that.
Oh, okay. Wow. So somebody's got to go in and
somebody's got to go in. So a good software asset management will monitor your use statistics and tell you when you have unused licenses. Better yet, you know how we issued Microsoft Project to everybody a few years ago? And it took us about 6 months to realize that only one person was using it, and we were paying like $500 a month in license fees. Do you remember that?
Yeah. Imagine extrapolating that if you're a multi-billion-dollar company.
Exactly. That's where I was going. Just to say, this has happened to us.
Wow.
With a good software asset management system, it'll tell you, you've issued these licenses for this software. This person hasn't used it in 18 months, 6 months, 9 months, whatever. You need to claw it back and draw down on your entitlements. That's where you save a ton of money.
So I'm guessing, and what I'm seeing out there, and tell me, and it's from a business perspective, there's more and more use of, I'll call it single-use apps that companies are buying subscriptions to, be it a expense tracking, be it communications like a Slack and Asana.
Exactly.
And so I'm thinking here, I've got all these apps that I've got, or software. They're all great, wonderful. And they sign up for a 20-person subscription, and it's month to month, and 10 of those people decide to stop using it. Does it?
Yeah, so if you have a good software asset management system, it'll indicate, it'll know that you have 10 too many, and you should be able to draw it down, or that 10 haven't used it. And that's why, like, when you go out and pick a good software asset management system, you need to make sure that it has a software as a service component, because it's really easy to find software asset management systems that, it's just software on your fleet, But if you can't see what your software as a service entitlements are, you miss a huge opportunity there.
Well, I see this as an interesting opportunity, though, for companies too. So if I'm a large corporation, a lot of large corporations are or organizations, public, private sector, are very hesitant to buy new apps, new software that might be very valuable to them because they're afraid that they're not going to use it and that type of thing. This might be a case for companies being more open to let people use it, and then putting it, monitoring it, and then going, okay, guys, you can buy that app, that's fine, and we're gonna do month-to-month subscription.
But you have to do it through this.
And we're doing it through. And by the way, if you stop using it, we're shutting it down, and we're not paying.
That's right.
And so that's
yeah, exactly.
I like that.
And so if you think of tools and what a lot of our clients are using, they're either using Snow, they're using Flexera. There's just a ton of software asset management systems out there. But Snow and Flexera probably have some of the best software as a service monitoring. When you're doing a selection, you have to look and say, how strong is your software as a service module? And those guys have it. The other thing that you do with software asset management is making sure that you're at the latest patch release, at the latest good patch release. For your software.
For your licensed software.
For your licensed software.
Okay,
and that's just purely for security purposes. Now, I mentioned Qualys earlier. Qualys does that as well. But Flexera and Snow will do that for you. Qualys is purely only to monitor, your software version and whether or not it is at the right version. But it doesn't do the rest of software asset management, whereas Flexera and Snow does. Of course, I now will get 5 calls from Qualys salespeople, by the way. But
yes, Peter's number is...
Yeah, exactly, 832-555-1212. So, but there's a lot of money. There's a good reason to invest in that. So if I were to step back and kind of do a little bit of a wrap in that...
Well, don't end yet.
No, I'm not. But this end-to-end...
I got some important questions.
Sure. But end-to-end... typically, the number one package out there is either ServiceNow or Avanti. Okay, those are the two number one end-to-end ITAM, ITOM, ITSM, and then software asset management. They all provide that, but the two packages that I talked about typically will interface in and have very strong software as a service.
But I have a question. So one of the biggest complaints I hear at large organizations in public sector, private sector, that someone will say, I can't get access to this application. The company, the organization has a subscription to it. It takes forever to get access to it. Do these problems address that? Because people want to.
Okay, so
you're smiling at me.
Yeah, I'm smiling at you because it's. So what you're talking about is not a system issue. If the system is set up correctly, and this is what's really important, and I've completely skipped this in the entire discussion. What you have to realize is, as with an ERP, if you don't have the right process and the right organizational structure to support everything that I just talked about, then everything I've just talked about doesn't happen.
Right. So you get the right process in place.
Right.
Okay.
So for you, the question that you just asked, I need access to, that's a service management ticket that will ultimately be if it's done right and the process is in place, there's a workflow that will automatically say, yes, you are eligible to have access to the system. It should go over to the software as an asset management module, make sure that there is a license available. And if not, then you're authorized to have a license purchased for you. And then you're given back through this workflow stream, you're given back, here's your ID and login.
Okay, from a process perspective. So do any of these systems allow you to do, like for example, I go to the App Store when I need something?
Absolutely. Both Flexera and Snow, and this is where they have strong strengths, is they do have what's called is an app store.
Because I can go in, if I work for a large organization, I need that app, or I can request
ServiceNow also gives you that functionality a little bit as well. I'm embarrassed to say I don't know about Ivanti. I have a feeling they probably do too. Yeah,
with a fancy name like that, they've got to have.
Yeah, definitely. I hope I said it right.
I think you did.
It's a joke, but anyway.
But anyway, no, this is great because really what you're talking about here is from an end-to-end perspective. I'm a employee at a large organization. I have a problem. This is how we address their problems with technology. I have a I want to make sure my computer is always working. Critical applications, be it if you're a utility or a manufacturing company, it's always running. And then if I need something new or I need a new piece of software, it's there. And then, by the way, if I forget to tell you that I'm not using this piece of software anymore,
it'll claw back automatically.
It'll turn it off, and I don't feel bad that I've spent an extra $500 on
a month.
Microsoft Project a month for my personal use that I didn't use it for. This is amazing. I got to tell you. Real quickly before we wrap up, but in terms of saving money, I mean, are you seeing some big savings out there in the market?
Yeah, without a doubt. So, without giving away, you can save tens of millions of dollars easy.
I can imagine because
you can save and I'm scared to say that because, like in the early days of ERP, there were always these business cases about how much money you're going to save, and you never did. Oh, you never did. Come on.
They never found the money.
Yeah, they never found the money. They saved it. They saved it because they had to say that to the board. But where the heck was it? But in asset management, specifically around end-of-life assets and making sure that you know what you own, and you're paying the right entitlements for what you own. In terms of software asset management, again, managing entitlements there as well, and being able to pay what you're using, pay for what you're using properly. And even better, software companies change their licensing fees on a regular basis. Flexera and Snow will let you know there's a better licensing fee structure out there. You need to go renegotiate. When you put all that together, you can save a significant amount of money.
Okay, well, this is great. Peter Purcell, thank you. Appreciate that. And I will tell you, those of you listening, including Peter's mom, if you have questions about, if you're not a salesperson from one of these companies and you do have serious questions, you're an IT organization or a board member trying to figure out how do you make this happen for your company, reach out to Peter Purcell, and that's ppurcell@trinergy.com. Hey, thank you, Peter. It's been a great visit, and I think we've cleared 3 jargon-y words in one podcast.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And to our listeners, thank you for sticking around this long.
Thank you.